So, Sly Cooper Thieves in Time. I love the original Sly trilogy for PS2. These are games that I played over and over as a kid, and were definitely some of my favorites on the platform. I remember when Sly 4 got announced, I was so excited. Finally, after more than half a decade, Sly and the gang would be returning. The only problem is, I didn't have a PS3 at the time, so I was pretty much out of luck and was unable to play the game when it was released. Anyhow, I recently got around to playing it, and what did I think? Well, let's start with the good. Thieves in Time has a great concept. Throughout the previous games, you often hear about Sly's ancestors and learn their techniques through a book called the Thievius Raccoonus. The basic plot of Sly 4 being that the pages of the Thievius Raccoonus are vanishing and the gang must go back in time to different eras and find out why the pages are disappearing and who is behind it. With this concept, not only are we able to see Sly interact with his ancestors, we can also use them as playable characters and play around with their unique abilities. This was honestly a solid idea, especially because of how much we had heard about the ancestors in the previous games. Thieves in Time also has great presentation all across the board. I've heard some say they weren't a fan of the look of this game, but I think the more detailed but still cel-shaded look of both the characters and the world was great. To tie in with both presentation and the concept, a lot of the worlds not only looked great, but also made for some really cool locales and settings. Instead of just traveling around the world like in previous games, we're now able to have worlds based in the Wild West, Middle Ages, and Ancient Arabia. Gameplay is an interesting one. To start, some of the ancestors have some neat abilities and are pretty fun to play around with, the most standout being Tennessee Cooper. Tennessee's cane also acts as a gun with a dead-eye slowdown effect. Not only can you use it as a weapon, you can also use it to shoot targets for use in puzzles during missions. Tennessee also slides down rails a decent amount, and any game with rail grinding is always a good time. Sly also gets access to new costumes in each of the episodes, which grant him new abilities. He gets a Robin Hood looking outfit, which I found to be the coolest. You're able to shoot an arrow at a target, which then becomes a rope that Sly is able to run across. It's pretty neat. Though, this is also where some of the issues start to lie. Each episode has a set amount of jobs to do within them before you can take on the boss of the episode and move on to the next one. It works the same way as it did in the original games, but the difference is that the jobs in this title felt really half-baked at times. Oftentimes you would go and take some pictures and job complete, or follow some guy and job complete. There were many times where I would start a job, complete it in less than 5 minutes, and then just sit there like, was that it? Don't get me wrong, not all jobs were like this. There were definitely some solid missions with a good amount of variety and beef to them, but there were enough stinkers to where it became quite a flaw of the game. Another problem is that because there are so much variety in characters, it feels like some of them never really got a chance to shine or that you have enough time to even use them. Carmelita especially felt underutilized and left me wondering what the point of even having her in the game was. Beyond the gameplay, another issue lies with the story and characters. Firstly, they ruined a character from the previous games, and while I won't say who here for the sake of spoilers, it's pretty obvious if you play the game for even a bit. Beyond just them though, other characters such as Dimitri and especially Murray feel like they were written by people who had no idea who these characters were. Murray in this game is strictly comic relief. His entire character is that he loves to eat food. That is it. Of course, Murray liked to eat and was a bit of a goofball in previous entries, but it feels like they threw everything out the window in regards to what his character was, especially after the events of Sly 2 and 3. Murray was a badass before. Now he's just a joke compared to his previous self. The other character problems lie with the villains. They range from meh to just bad. The original trilogy had great standout villains for so many of their episodes. So much so that they would sometimes return in later games, and even a couple joined the Cooper gang. Here, pretty much each villain is forgettable, and that's just very disappointing coming from a series with such strong villains and characters in the other games. Overall, what did I think of Sly Cooper Thieves in Time? It's not a bad game, but it doesn't reach the heights of the PS2 trilogy, and that's a pretty sad reality. I would have loved to have another Sly game as great as the OGs. If you are a diehard fan of the originals but still haven't played Sly 4, I would still give it a shot. It's more Sly, even with the problems it does have. But if you're just looking for a new 3D platformer to try and you're not a Sly fan already, I would recommend going to play the originals. They are truly some amazing games.